Hello, everyone. Hello, my lovelies, my gentlemen, my rats, my damsels in distress. It is I, your Lord and Savior, Leonor, with a very special guest this morning. A person that I consider a pretty, good friend to have, an ally in the fight against stupidity. And as you all know, it is running rampant within this country for the past, I don't know, since the fucker got elected. So that's where we are. But without further more delay, I'm here with not only my guest, but my co-host, Grimmy. Say hello, Grimmy. Yes. Oh, you're excited. I know you are. As am I. All right. Without further delay, here is my partner in crime, Blue Cobwebs.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to meet you visually. I agree with what you said about the orange fucker.
Yes.
But in more pleasant note, I am honored and pleased that you have invited me
Of course.
for this interview. Yes, I'm nervous. See, people never say that they're nervous, but they are. They just don't say it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I have interviewed people myself, and I tell people, the same thing that I should tell myself. It's like, you are there to share information and to have fun too.
Of course, yeah.
You're not being judged or ruled or anything else. But again, I am honored that you asked me to do this, and I appreciate it very much, and look forward to seeing this marvelous video that I know you're going to.
I know.
Edit.
We're going to be working on it rather hard, honestly, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And yes, rats, forgive me. I have to sort of, pepper myself because, God forbid, I melt on screen. Want to give the Christians the benefit of the doubt, Their prayers aren't working. They never do, hardly. But again, Blue Cobwebs, thank you for coming here for this lovely interview we're doing. I'm going to call you by Webs. Is that okay?
I'd rather not.
No? What would you like to be called? Blue Cobwebs or Blue?
Mistress of the... I'm sorry, I can't say that with a straight face. My real name is fine. Blue Cobweb.
Blue Cobwebs?
Yeah.
All right. Splendid. Here we go. Blue Cobwebs. So, now, lovelies, I have a list of questions here that I've prepared for our honored guest for this lovely afternoon. We are in a beautiful abode. Honestly, I've scarcely seen anything this nice in quite some time. Honestly, many houses I've been to, not nearly as cultured, not nearly as fascinating as this home that we are in. And so I'm so happy to be here among, people of actually good taste. Because we all need some good taste, honestly. So, again, it's a loosey-goosey statement. If anybody has any sort of questions, put it in the comments. I won't tell you again, okay? That's how we're going to do it. So, let us start with some introductions. So, let's just go with the sort of, who is this person known as Blue Cobweb? How does she identify? How is she's, I guess sort of interest, areas of expertise? Give us a bit about yourself, sort of your origin story, where you started, I think is a good way to go.
Well, I am a lifelong Clevelander. I have been a witch probably my whole life. Identified as a witch probably since the 80s. I never came out with it until I met my dear friend Miranda, who works at Coven, the witchy store that used to be in Lakewood. And
They closed?
Yeah, they've been closed for a while.
I think I went there, I think about a few years ago when they were still open.
Yeah, she just, she wanted to go a different direction with her, with her life. And working retail is difficult.
It's a nightmare.
That's a polite way to put it.
Yes, I hate it. Yeah. I've done it for 3.5 years, left the job quite recently, and I couldn't be more happier, honestly.
Yeah, retail is just, some people thrive on it. It depends what kind of place you're working in too. Like people who work in bookstores, especially indie bookstores, that's a whole different thing. That's retail, but
true.
You've got books. You've got lots of books, like
loads of books.
I could not. I would fill this room if I had brought all my books with me.
I have an entire bookshelf full of books. Yes, the lovely's seen that on the videos.
Yeah, I have. When I move, the truck is going to be filled with books and nothing else.
Honestly.
But back to the, Miranda is a very powerful. She's a Scorpio, so of course very powerful, very strong. But she's very kind, and she's very intuitive, and she made me realize a lot of things about myself that I was kind of struggling with. So it's like, well, yeah, because she would talk about her intuitive functions, whatever. And it's like, well, that's what I am too. The same things that um, I can think of a good way to put it. So we're going to cut that part.
It's all right.
But she challenged me too. And one of the first conversations that we had is we were just sitting in Coven and talking about the craft and the practice and how to get started. And I said, well, I don't really know how to get started here. And she said, well, I said, I don't know what to buy, to get started. And she said, well, you don't need to buy anything. She said, what you have is here and here. And I love that. And I thought that's the perfect thing to say.
It honestly is, because when so many people are going into the craft, the only exposure they've had is from what they've seen on TV or what they see on the social networks or anything like that. Honestly, when it comes to the craft, what you need is a sort of the whole thing about intention. But intention is not everything. You have to put in work in order for the craft to, fully work. But it is a good way to start, because beliefs and things like magic become stronger when you feel a sense of sort of urgency or type of belief behind them. And so there's a whole sort of psychological thing behind it, I'm sure, and everything else. But the energy is a bit different when you sort of go into that from that perspective. And so when you're sort of going into the craft, when you first start out, you're going to be reading books, or you're going to be trying to do things on your own, things that you've maybe seen in popular media.
Yeah, that's how I started. I just took things, I got some things that I felt called to, like candles. I've always loved candles.
Love it.
And herbs. And then I got a few crystals. I'm not really like a crystal witch
Me neither.
in my practice, but I just, I love the candles. I love the, the power and the fragrance, and then the herbs too, combining those. But I've told people, and people have asked me about my, getting started. I said, well, when I got started, I did a lot of reading. In fact, this, pardon me, this book, Juliet Diaz is a wonderful, wonderful witchy author. Okay. And she's also...
Show it to you, actually. You can get a pretty close picture there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's known as Juliet Diaz Witchery.
Yeah, and I love this cover. I wanted to get a tattoo of this, but the tattoo artist
said, a bad idea.
It's too much. It's too intricate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Expensive too.
Yeah.
It'll be expensive for sure.
Yeah, but that would be great. But she also has created with two other people the Seasons of the Witch Oracle decks. Oh, so there's one for each season. I didn't bring the in bulk because I'm using that right now at home. But this is Yule. There's all the other witchy Sabbaths, etc. And
show it here too, just so that everyone can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
after we're getting it closed, we can always pop it up for you. But yes, honestly, it looks rather nice. Can you show us maybe one of the cards to see like the artwork?
I was just going to do that very thing. I love these cards. I love the artwork. You get this wonderful little booklet with it, with a couple of pages about each card. They give you spreads and suggestions for spreads to do, but I just love the edge, this color.
Oh yes,
it's
look.
Yeah.
It has a sheen. It's gilded green.
Yeah, and each deck is a different color. And I just love, just looking at these, but they're not, they just feel like home to me.
Yes. They're very cozy.
Yeah. And this is the first, the Soane deck is the first one that I got. And I just, I just loved it and loved working with it. I don't work a lot with cards, getting back to
me either,
practice
to be
a little
honest.
bit.
I'm pretty bad at it.
Yeah, I tried. I mean, I love, people who do tarot. I love that. I love that. It's such a dedicated study and practice, and it's it requires a lot of energy. And I've seen people do readings, very complicated readings, like the whole table is filled with cards, and it's just not for me. But I like the Oracle deck because it's more intuitive. It just,
Yes, funny you mentioned that because I have some friends in Utah that are very seasoned witches. They also do things like oracle and tarot.
mm-hmm.
And one of my dear friends over there, who's I think one of the the leaders of the church down there, um, he says that sort of like tarot has a sort of whole system behind it, something that's been written down and studied. It's a bit more, it's a bit easier for people to sort of get a hold of because there's like a system with it. But when it comes to oracles, it's sort of a bit more intuitive, like you said. Like it sort of allows itself to align itself with the person that is using the deck. With things like the pictures, how they are sort of organized in a certain way, the descriptions behind them. But there are things that are tuned to your understanding of the card itself. And so that's a beautiful thing about oracle cards, is that they sort of don't have a set system in a way, but they allow themselves to, be interpreted a number of ways that can be beneficial to the user.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to say it. It's again, to me, they're easier, and I'm a quadruple Gemini, so I'm all about.
Hey, it's honestly, it's fair game. Whatever works for you, whatever gets you nice and hard, you go for that.
Yeah.
And for you, it's oracle decks. Splendid.
Yeah. What that kind of reminds me, one of the things that I love about the witchy community, is that, and I felt this from Miranda, because she was really kind of my introduction to the Cleveland witchy community. But people don't judge. It's like, okay, well, I work with Hecate. I don't. It doesn't matter. You learn from each other.
Exactly.
Some people don't work with any deities at all, and that's okay. And some work with, however many they can fit in their mental space.
Yes.
And that's, and that's okay too. That's what I love about it. It's, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to say anything. There aren't rules. I mean, I come from, I grew up, 12 years of Catholic school, so it's painful. Yes. Still, I'm still recovering from that. But I like the freedom that, that witchcraft, paganism gives. Yes. It's you can be what you want, as long as you harm harm no one.
Yes.
Or the earth or other creatures, right-wing people may be harming them.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, honestly, send it on it, I mean, but it's true with what you said, because I, for example, and those of you may know this already, I was sort of involved within that organization, the evangelical organization, the sort of, we were a lot more, I was fundamentalist for like maybe over 20 years.
I'm shocked by this.
I know, honestly, because the thing is that like when you grow up in that type of environment, and I mentioned it ad nauseum on this channel, but when you grow up in that environment, you're sort of enveloped in this type of bubble that becomes your reality. And so the entire world, how you interpret that bubble is your reality. And so when I was growing up, when I was younger, we were in mostly like Hispanic churches, so it's a bit different flair, still very fundamentalist, but very Pentecostal at the same time. Things like laying on of hands, speaking in tongues, casting out demons and the like. But I think over time, because there were parts of myself that weren't being realized and weren't being welcomed within that community that poses as being sort of welcoming, the sort of all-encompassing love, agape thing, it sort of started to create cracks in that reality for me. And so when I would read scripture, and when I would see Christians that proclaim to be part of that religious structure not abide by those same rules, it starts to create sort of an area of doubt within me. And so, because I believed in excellence and actually being a good example and not seeing that reflected within the community that I was a part of, nor in the God that they claim to serve, I started to, sort of make even more cracks within this sort of structure, within this bubble. And so I think up until maybe like several years ago, I decided to just take the leap of it, because it started when, I was in church, and then I was part of the music group and everything like that. And then at some point, I was also hiding the fact, I was a homosexual, the gay. I was that, God forbid, but I was part of that. And so I would do the things that the book would tell me to do. I would pray, I would fast, I would do everything that it would require of me. And the one thing I would ask for would be freedom from that sin, but it never happened. And so a number of things started to fall into my mind, whether or not God is actually okay with it or not, whether he has power to change that, or whether it's really not as bad as people say it is. So because, it never went away, because praying did not make the gay go away at all. And even though I abstained for so many years, it didn't kill the urges, it didn't kill the thoughts. So I was like, you know what? I need to sort of try to open myself up, embrace this.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, I wasn't finding freedom in a place that said they had it. Because I did not feel free there. I felt a lot more restricted. And so it's very ironic, like they talk about things like breaking chains or, cutting things like that. I had no vices, save for this.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sort of very curious and I was very adamant about my position within that organization. So up until the day where I was told to sit down, because I saw one of these videos, and I wasn't even deep into the craft at that point. They were like, you know what? Let us just receive today. You cannot participate with the music group. You cannot worship on stage. Stay at your bunk and enjoy the service and receive whatever message or power you get from that.
Wow.
So my mom took offense to that, and then she
Good.
asked me afterwards. She's not really with this at all. She was like, "Well, why would they do that?" And then, so I asked her, and then she had to ask them, and then it turns out she says, "Well, what are your videos about?" And so since my mind already functions, 1,000 miles a minute, I already knew where this was going.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her about it, and then she told me her stance on everything else. So long story short, I left the organization, and upon embracing the craft or magic in general, I felt a greater sense of freedom and a greater sense of community, because I'm not only allowed to be my authentic self, I'm also allowed to feel what it is to be free for the first time in my life. And so that's the beautiful thing about magic, about this community. That's sort of my thing about it.
Yeah, that's a very powerful thing, to be yourself and to be free to be yourself, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I mean, I'm horrified. I've heard and read these stories, from other people,
Mm-hmm.
and it just sickens me and it angers me, and that's why I appreciate the craft, because people accept me for who I am, what I believe in, what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say too, to kind of play devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
pun intended, that there are a lot of sincerely religious people out there.
Yes, that's
and
true.
Maybe watching this,
Mm-hmm.
and who accept other people. You believe something different to what I do. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's how it should be.
Yes.
Like I'm thinking in particular the minister who stood up to the orange thing.
Yes, sir, yes.
Yeah, I can't remember their name.
Yes,
but,
the Cheeto demon, yes.
Yes.
We're very well aware.
but for her to say,
the bishop, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, thank
I
you.
remember.
Yeah. And to say, I mean, I just love that. And I was just, this is truly what religion is like. And this is what people, again, who truly believe in their religion.
Yes.
It's like, it's not to harm other people.
Right.
It's to help other people.
And it's also people that actually studied their scriptures and their religion, that got deep into what the pages mean. The issue is that when it comes to fundamentalism, and this is sort of where the crack or the divide occurs within organized Christian religion, is that some people are literalists versus others who see this as sort of like metaphors, similes, things to learn from, why they did these sort of things in their relationship with God. But some people take it absolutely literal, but they pick and choose the things that they take literal or not. So that's sort of where the hypocrisy sort of comes in, and that's where the divide happens, because right now there's essentially Christians battling other Christians, especially with this regime that we're going through. We have supporters for the, Demon Taco, and then, Demon Cheeto, whatever the fuck his name is, Pigman. So we have the issues for that. But I, for one, have a very good friend of mine who's a pastor of a church, Christian church. He knows what it is that I do, what I believe in. And I know that he might have his own thoughts about it, which he's kept to himself. But he's never treated me different. He sort of is acting out the things that you should be doing. And he's actively and adamantly on the feeds, denouncing ICE, the administration, other Christians that sort of support this, with things like immigration or whatever. And these are things that are problems. But then when I would bring up that in scripture, and I would pop it up on screen, I believe it does mention that you are to treat the alien as if they are native to the land. And this was an address given to the Israelite people, because they had people coming in, they had slaves coming in as well. And there was concerns about, things like religion, and there's things that change from Old to New Testament, but these are things that even Christians don't really know because they don't really study Scripture. Unfortunately, what I've seen, because I've been through it, is that a lot of them will sort of sit at a bunk in front of a man speaking on stage who may or may not have their own agenda through what they are reading and teaching, and the church absorbs that. And they have their own political affiliations with a particular party, and they will try to filter that into their message. And so a lot of the times, if the people aren't like sort of having this sort of discernment, they would just take that at face value and say that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so that sort of defeats the purpose of everyone having a Bible. You're supposed to read it for yourself. But people don't do that. People don't read. And so the ones that do can either misinterpret something because it's been poisoned or corrupted by another person's interpretation. But that's what you have Christians that would sort of go to war with each other. I did it. I would have to have arguments with pastors, with leaders of churches.
Mm-hmm.
I had to reprimand the first lady of our church, me. I had to reprimand her because what she was doing at a certain point was not only inappropriate but counter to the movement of God at the time. And so, but she, asked for forgiveness from the people. She realized she committed an error because I brought it up. But these are people that are human. They error, but they have no accountability unless someone, forces them to that point. But you make a good point to that, because it's not like, as much as I talk shit about the Christians and about the organization, I don't harbor any sort of evil ill will. I'm just very jaded about the whole organization and the whole movement. But per, these testimonies and what we're saying, for what you've seen online, you can see why. Especially when we have some that are supporting a regime like this blindly, and they don't realize the hypocrisy of what they are doing. Jesus himself was an immigrant. They were fleeing Egypt at the time. They had to sort of, no, they were fleeing Israel because Herod, the king of Israel, heard that there was a prophecy that he was going to be overthrown or something like that in the land of Israel. That's why he set out. So Mary and Joseph had to essentially smuggle their child Jesus to Egypt, a different country, to get away from Herod in order to, survive. And they were technically illegals in that point. But like I said, there's a lot of, incohesion within that sort of movement. And I could be getting the countries mixed up, but that's sort of what happened in Scripture. They went from one place to another because they were being persecuted,
Right.
Which the Christians now are not. You're not being persecuted, and we'll get to that. But I want to focus on your thing about that sort of thing, because it's true what you said.
Yeah, I made a decision a long time ago to put Catholicism behind me.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't serve me at all. And part of the I was going to throw in, we're not going to mention the orange taco.
We don't have to.
But part of the support for its campaign was the right-wing evangelicals.
Yes.
Because they met with his people, and it's like, okay, let's hammer out a deal. There was no religion, real religion, involved in it. It was, if you support, if you're, against immigration, take action against people of color, the anti-abortion movement, all these other things. It was a financial transaction. It was. And it just so counterproductive. But I think let's go back a little bit. When I decided to fully commit to a witchcraft practice, I liked it kind of from the beginning, because it took me to a place where nothing is mandatory. You don't have to do anything in a particular way, like I think I said, previously. And I just felt accepted, and whatever I'm praying to, whoever, whatever that is, I really can't put that into concrete, terms, but I just felt comfortable in it and at home, and that what I was doing was right. Right. And I'm, another part of my craft, which is fun, is like Miranda says, you like burning shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Candles.
I have, I have 3 fire pits.
3 fire pits.
Yes.
Wow.
And I you know, um, well, I burn things as appropriate. Sometimes burning things are for, to banish them.
Right.
A sign that says something horrible and atrocious and cruel, and you burn that to banish, the entities, that created it, and
Smoke them out.
the thoughts behind it. And other times, burn something like herbs, as an offering, to a deity. Sometimes I do include, deities in my practice as I see fit.
Right.
But it's just the creativity of it, I think, is what speaks to me too. I like the fact that I can, craft a spell.
Yes.
And I work on it until it works for me. And I've talked to other people in the community about this, and somebody who's new is maybe looking for ideas. My thing is, you can find a lot of great things in books, like this Magic for the Resistance. Since we kind of can't not talk about politics, this is a great book. This is the 2nd edition of this book that Michael, I think we can be on a first name basis, has written. But there's a lot of things in here about a magical practice, and how to use different things in your personal practice at home to strengthen yourself to go out there and do what you need to do.
Exactly.
And one of the very wise things that he says is that you need to do the magic. You can do the most beautiful spell, wonderful spell, candles, incense, bell, everything, but without taking any action, your magic is just going to kind of fall flat. And I'm paraphrasing. This is not how he says it in the book, but I believe that's absolutely true. It's like a lot of other things in life. You do the spell for your intention to set your spirit and your strength and protection too, again, for doing things, for doing whatever it is that you want to and need to do. But you have to go out there and do the physical thing.
Of course.
Like looking for a job,
Exactly.
A job, I'm sorry to any magical people out there, but a job, again,
you need it.
Yeah.
Look, and Christian doctrine states that faith without work is dead. So you can have all the intention in the world you want, but if you don't go out there and get it, it's not going to come. You have to give the effort. Magic follows the path of least resistance, but magic can also be helped by action. All magic does is increases the successes of the spell from happening.
Exactly.
But it needs a clear direction and access to get to that point. And the more help you give it, the more solid and, impactful the fruition from the spell is going to be.
Yeah, and the better results that you'll get.
100%.
Yeah. So it's nice to talk to somebody who agrees with me.
No, yes, I know.
Completely.
I know, because the thing is that, and the other issue is that when it comes to things like magic, there can be some sort of here we're sort of okay, but there are certain types where this is where sort of the issues get in when it comes to things like where people claim magic, but they do things that sort of, I don't want to say contradict, but sort of counteract other people's proven methods of magic are. But magic is gray. There's no real right or wrong way to do magic, because magic is simply, if it works, it works. Magic is like this thing. It's like magic is the process, and the science behind it is the understanding of that process. So, you're doing magic, but there's sort of issues where, and on my channel, I don't want to bash anyone, but everyone knows Melinda, the Mystic Witch. We don't like Melinda. But I'm convinced she's like a Christian masquerading as a witch.
Ooh.
And she said some horrible things about Hecate and everything else, and, black witches in general, magic, and, but she doesn't read.
That's not a... Okay.
I know.
That's 3 things you said that I absolutely love.
No, I know. But the thing is,
Yeah.
she's one where she doesn't read up on it, and she doesn't care for the history. She's mentioned that.
Mm.
So, but I have 2 videos on. You can watch the channel, check those out real quick. But when we have people within the magical community, quote unquote, that are doing things that sort of diminish the effectiveness or at least the validity of the community itself, we need to put those people into question because there's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. There's a lot of trickster spirits within our community.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was another point I wanted to get to. There's even witches that support MAGA. There's MAGA witches.
I know that shocks me and sickens me. And fortunately, I haven't met any.
Me either. I would have stoned them if that was the case. I'm pretty no, but Melinda was one of those,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew she was. And there's other people you can tell, because since my type of magic involves a lot of things like speech, communication, and music, there's words you can hear that are sort of identify them immediately.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear these words or catchphrases, you already know where their mindset is, and so if you can delineate where they are, you can tell where they're from, what sort of branch they're from, their sort of belief system or thought processes. So those are things to look out for. But it is unfortunate because magic was historically given to those who were disenfranchised, people that didn't have power, to attain the power necessary to effect a change for the better. But here we have people that are sort of hijacking that type of power, which is admittedly open to everyone. They are hijacking something that was originally, created or discovered by those who didn't have power. And we can have some debates on that to sort of, help us get the change we needed. In order for women to have the right to vote, for gays to be accepted, for there to not be any black slaves or slaves for at all for that matter. All the movements that we've done and the successes that have come behind it were attributes to, people that were practicing their witchcraft, because even Christianity was appropriated by a particular breed of person. They wanted to claim ownership over Christianity, and they gave the black slaves their own type of Bible, like the slaves' Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So they were weaponizing their religion, the things that was giving them power, twisting it so that others that use religion would not gain that power in return. So even religious organizations, Christian organizations, also have access to magic, and unbeknownst are also using magic, but to the detriment of others that they deem less worthy. Because magic is a force and it works for everything. Whether you believe in a god or anything else, the principles are still the same. In order to work with a god, in order to work with the Holy Spirit, you have to, and they do this, they offer up worship, they chant incantations, they also light up candles and things like the sacrament. They purify things, they use oils to consecrate holes and everything else. Similar practices that other pagan traditions have done for thousands and thousands of years. And so a lot of the times when you go into the history, you find that a lot of pagan people, when the Inquisition or whenever who came in, when they sort of had to adopt a Christian faith for their own survival, were also adapting their personal spiritual practices within religion. That's why in some Catholic churches in Europe, you would find gargoyles or I guess like the Green Man engraved in some of the bunks, because there's evidences of past pagan practices that sort of kept and that I'm sure were added into the Christian faith. And so these are things that, it is unfortunate when it comes to things like magic or the practice of the craft. But right now, especially, given where we are, we need to sort of point out the ones that claim to be of the community that are not helping the community. You don't have to. You can be a selfish practitioner. You're absolutely allowed to do that. But if what you are doing is, on a whole, dangerous to not only your kind, but other people that depend on that community for their own survival, you have to sort of, be brought into the light, and we have to sort of, protect ourselves. This is where gatekeeping is important. But even that's a sort of, a touchy subject within the community.
Yeah, it's because the craft is, acceptance is of others is a key thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that I don't think I've encountered any right-wing, pagans.
Me either.
I have not.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, I've not spoken to anybody, that makes me think that. Now, Stephen deals with a lot more different types of people.
Yes, he has a shop right there, Witchcraft. Anyone can come in.
Yeah, and he has, people who come in there. He has, religious, fanatics, let's just say, come in there, and they're not coming in there to have a conversation like, let's learn about each other.
Right, of course not.
Which is what, I would like to see that happening, but frankly, I think that's just a wish that,
No.
but I think that would help immensely, because it's like we all basically want the same things. But anyway, back to, to the community. Again, I've not, and the people that I know have not encountered anybody who is
Yes.
a right-wing.
Same here,
Yeah.
except for ones you might see on YouTube or anything else
Mhm.
that, give support to, the Cheeto demon or their ilk, the other kinds, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see what's happening and to know, like, this is kind of wrong. But unfortunately, the country's divided.
I think that those people, because intention is the thing, and everything about the craft is like, do things, to help others, to help yourself, to help people in the community, to help people you don't even know,
Right.
which has a lot of things, of course, in common with Buddhism too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that, this is just a feeling that I have, but I don't think MAGA pagans have an influence or a power. I just don't feel that they do.
No.
I could be wrong, but I don't feel that.
No,
and or the presence.
Right.
Even.
To that point, I would say that they probably have, and because they are sort of aligning themselves with the radical Christians that are within the same MAGA movement, and they sort of don't see eye to eye with each other. The only thing, and this is something that maybe you might or other witches might not know, okay, when I was in the Christian communities. So when I was in the Christian church, in the communities, we had cell groups. And so people were convinced at a point, they would talk about how there's witches or Satanists that would go to a block and they would get in a circle and start incanting to curse the neighborhood. Not saying that that can't happen, or I've taken part. What I'm saying is that, I'm saying, but that is a principle that can work. But it's also works in their doctrine, if two are united in my name, then I am there. That's a Christian thing.
Yeah.
But so we have Christian cell groups, for example, and they did this before, where there was a bunch of Christian people that went to City Hall and to pray over the city and things like that. And so at the same time, they would try to denounce or curse things like witches, to, dismantle any sort of, diabolical schemes or anything like that. But what they don't believe is that we are also doing things for the betterment of our city. We could be working in tandem, but because the differences in ideology and how we approach certain things, they can't see that. And so there's some Christian groups that will, sort of do the same thing. They would go outside into a block or into a sort of important building, but they are convinced is, being misled by the devil. And they would sort of, use their own magic, their own spiritual energy with their intentions and with scriptures and stuff. They are essentially doing what we are doing, but they're doing it their own way. They're sort of utilizing the power of prayer and the intentions behind it and anything else that they're doing to try to, push this sort of, ethereal being, God or whomever, to enact a change over the city according to what their belief entitles. So that means, they don't like Pride. I went to Pride, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago in downtown. There were Christians in downtown parading around in camo, blowing the shofar, which is like a horn trumpet, telling people to repent, you shouldn't be here, this is a sin and everything else. Everyone else that was there wasn't having that shit. They're like, get the fuck out of this city. We don't want you here. This is ridiculous.
There were also the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. I don't know if you've seen them.
I'm not sure if I have. I might have missed it.
They are all, I'm going to say they're nuns. They're wearing very tall platforms and fishnets. They have the nun's habit, the veil and everything.
All right.
But very, very tiny skirt.
Oh.
They are, some of them have beards. And they carry these enormous rosaries, and they just, pardon the expression, they just really camp it up.
Yeah.
Camping it up for Jesus, I think.
Right.
But it's just great because to me it reclaims Catholicism. And
right.
It's like, I think they're doing it as a tribute. I think it's, it's fun. And that's what I love about Pride is it accepts everyone. They don't care who you are, what you wear.
Right.
As long as you're not there to bother anybody else, to hurt anybody else, you can wear whatever you want.
Right.
And it's everybody's accepted. I just, to me, that's like the biggest safe space that there is.
Right. And like, for example, I brought a friend of mine who had never been to Pride before, to Pride, a straight person, and they said it was rather nice, and so, I mean, Pride's never for some people, it's not an ideal situation. There's some cities that they sort of took initiatives and they made it to where, like, if children are attending Pride, we have certain daytime hours. After a certain hour, then the other people come out and they do what they want to do because it's valid. And I understand the concerns people have, and that's one of the criticisms that they would use against Pride. You should have Pride because their children's outside, they're gonna turn them gay, and all these sort of crazy things, but they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to things like Pride, a lot of them don't understand the history behind Pride, things like the Stonewall riots, all the things that we already know. But Pride is meant to sort of celebrate the individuals, like who you are, how you feel, that you are validated within this city, within this space, that you are among common people. In America, you should have the freedom to be what you want to be. But because we still have these constraints from religious ideology that has wormed its way into our, constitution, within our national documentation, it sort of created that sort of thing. And so they will always, and they did it for slavery, for segregation, they will always use children as the excuse for why people can't be themselves. It's a fear tactic. That's what they're doing. And so some people, I'm afraid. Like, look, despite everything that came out, there weren't any drag queens in the Epstein files. They were complaining about them reading books, but we all know what's happening in Christian churches. People are being molested, raped. There's things of that, on TV, but they're not getting their funding pulled. They're getting support from the government as well. So, there's contradictions. But it's true what you say about Pride. Because it absolutely, when I first went, this sort of wave of emotion, because I was also nervous. Because, I was out already, but I was never out with people like this. But it felt very reassuring. I felt like I belonged there because it was a space for me and for other people like myself. But it should also be a space for people who maybe aren't of the community, but they are allies. They support your freedom to be who you are.
Exactly.
And all of those things. And sure, you have the people that are extra in Pride. They want to wear almost nothing for Pride in daylight hours. And there could be children watch. Of course, you have to watch what you wear. Don't be stupid. I understand. Look, honestly, I'm all for it. But you have to understand that, look, this is a public event. And that's on the officials, by the way. They have to sort of specify that, look, we love you being you. We love you being fat. We love you being slutty. But understand that we do have children here because they want to support their gay cousins or gay brothers and sisters or whatever it is. And sometimes there can be some uncomfortability, Those individuals, but it doesn't mean that the entire movement is invalid, and it doesn't mean that that stuff isn't allowed. It's a celebration of us. The kids probably, some can make a case they shouldn't be there. But at the same time, kids should see that these people exist, that they are part of their same community, of the same neighborhood. They should have this. That's how you grow a community. That's how you grow a nation. That's how everyone feels united. Because kids know, look, that's gay Uncle Bobby. We love him. And we love other Uncle Ted. Uncle Ted and Uncle Bobby love each other. Because that's what kids see.
Yeah.
Kids see the love. They see the happiness. That's what they vibe with. They're not in their minds about what they're doing behind closed doors. Kids don't think that way. The adults do. But, I don't mean to get into a tangent about that, but
Well, it's tough not to. No, I understand that. You mentioned earlier about people not reading and about history and about books, and obviously, books are my life, and books have saved my life sometimes when I've been going through a rough time. What I see as a problem is that people are not reading and studying history and learning from it. And persecution of people, sadly, as I think you mentioned earlier, that's nothing new.
No, it's not.
And it's, if you want to go back with, pagans, witches, druids, whatever, non-Christian beliefs, people, coming in to convert this is going to be my soapbox, but you can stop me at any time.
No, go ahead.
Believe it or not. But people went to the UK to convert the blue painted pagans, And what they did was part of it was, and you may know this, you folks out there may know this specifically.
I hope so.
Better than me. But to the goddesses and deities that the people, believed in, worshipped, worked with, whatever. Well, let's make this Saint so and so, like Saint Bridget.
That's right.
Is one in the UK, and there are a lot of other examples.
Like to your point, like some of the statues of Maria were actually statues of a thing like Diana before, or Artemis, for example, but they give it a different name. Right.
Yeah, and you paint it a little differently, but people who were still believing in the old religion, knew that it's like nothing's really any different. Just maybe the person looks different, but it's just a shame to me. It's more that it's a crime to me that people had to were made to do that. That they were not allowed to believe what they believed, because it's like, why do you? It just makes me angry. I'm trying not to lose my temper.
It's all right, go for it. We love anger.
but it's like, what gives you or anybody else the right to tell somebody what to believe? They're hurting no one. Their beliefs more than likely pretty much align with yours. Maybe the way that they worship is a little bit different. If they go out under the full moon and dance skyclad, well, okay, they do. How does that harm you?
It doesn't.
The people in this country, specifically in slavery, they in effect had to do the same thing. They were kind of force fed their owners' version of Christianity, but they took it. They incorporated their beliefs from their African religions and other practices, and they took the herbs and things. They couldn't use what they had used where they were stolen from, but they used things that they found here. Right. And that's, a lot of oppressed people have done this throughout history. And it just, it saddens me and angers me so much that, why can you not just leave people alone to believe whatever the hell they want?
Right.
If you are not hurting anyone, what's that saying? If it harms, do as I can't remember the quote. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But it's about not harming other people. It just, but people don't read history. They don't look at these persecutions, and so a lot of times the truth was not told. What happened to these people. Like we didn't learn anything in school. Myself about the persecution of the Native Americans. It's like, well, we murdered the brutal savages. Right. We decimated the country.
Yes.
And that was, we never learned about that though. No. And slavery was just, it was an unfortunate brief time in our country's history. It's like, no, it wasn't. And all these other horrible, hateful things, you have to know what happened, and you can't deny it. That's what I find just unconscionable.
Right, because when they deny it, they're not taking accountability for what has happened in the past.
Exactly,
because that's how you learn.
Exactly, yeah, and like Germany with the Holocaust. I mean, I think they handle it as well as as anyone can. I mean,
right. I mean, it's like they acknowledge what happened and they took steps to not repeat those same actions and to be better.
Yeah. And you cannot take back what happened, but you educate people and changes were made. I know, like in this country, and I've read some really just unimaginable, horrible things about people being lynched. Yes. And that still happens.
Yes.
It's not as widespread as it was, but we have I think 2 lynching museums in this country, and one of them it's a very moving display. It has containers of earth like from each state. Okay. And then I believe it's either a plaque with how many people were lynched or their names, if known. And that's just it, nothing else. And it's very moving because it's like, this tells the story you kind of don't need anything else.
Right.
But it just like, when are we going to learn? And
Honestly, I have a take on that.
You
I
have
said
an
it
answer
before.
for me,
I have it
please?
as the old must die. The ones that aren't good ones, it's just because unfortunately, when we have people that refuse to look at the past or have accountability for it, they tend to bring the past with them. And these are the same ones that are in the Senate, that are in parts of Congress, that are making the laws in this country. Unfortunately, there's loads of people that, from not learning history, you are doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
But they really think that what they're doing it's nothing new. Hardly anything is. It's just there's new flavors of something,
Mm-hmm.
but it all comes from the same thing. And unfortunately, as long as you have people that sort of maintain the same beliefs or ideologies or ways of being that were detrimental from the past with them, for them to then teach to their children, those ideas have to die in order for us to grow from it. It's like to me that's what the answer is, because for me it all stems from ideology. Like the mind makes the man. How you are is a result of what you've learned, of what you've applied to in your life. you know there's no harm from someone in a vegetative state. They literally can't. They are they're sort of non-existent in a certain way, like they're sort of stagnant. But when you have someone that has years of learning that can contribute to another person's upbringing, but the danger comes from what kind of upbringing did those people have prior? Like the people that were damaged or the people that were responsible for damaging others for their own ideologies. There should be no reason why there's still this movement of the KKK, white supremacy, when that was something of what, the 60s, 40s, around there, like when it was sort of at their height or so. There shouldn't be that. But it still persists because those ideologies have not died.
Right.
So we have to sort of, I think we should probably do if it's possible to kill ideas. I don't know. I don't think it is, but
No.
at least lay them to rest. It's like people should be shunned for that sort of thing, and some people would sort of say no against that because it's sort of creating that sort of animosity towards them. But if they have no interest in change or they see nothing wrong with their belief systems, because that's how ideas work, unfortunately, a belief can hold you captive. And so without the proper keys, you'll never get out. And so that's what I've seen when it comes to certain Christian branches within their own theology. The movement are like that. They will never stop believing that witches should be stoned, gays should be killed, women shouldn't have rights, all these things. Unfortunately, that's where we are. But you get past that when you teach people, look, this is the history, agreed upon, by the way, by most people in the world, that this is what happened. We have pictures, we can verify it. This is how we move better. And then we give reasons why it is better. Not just, fucking pretend like, the past was better, even though it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, that's what I saw a cartoon once in a magazine, and it was an older black woman sitting on a bus seat, and this person next to her had a MAGA hat on, and she's looking up and saying, "So when was America great exactly?"
Right.
Because if you look back again, people have been persecuted, and in ways that were not recorded by history.
No, they weren't.
So many stories are untold, and that's why I do a lot of reading about a lot of different things, and I like I found a book about Stonewall, and Marcia Johnson, I think was her name. Marcia P. Johnson.
Sounds familiar.
She came out during Stonewall, and she was like, I'm a drag queen, honey, and I'm here for my rights, and I'm here for your rights too.
That's right.
I don't care if you're how you're dressed up, and those things. Again, going back to pride, everybody is welcome there. People, the Planned Parenthood folks,
except MAGA.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I like somebody who feels as strongly about this as if I do. Maybe you can just yell louder than I can.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all. But part of it is, I mean, again, I know I'm, repeating about history, but it's just, if you don't know it, and see, you do, but people have to read and you have to understand, and you can't just read it and not question it.
Right.
And again, like I said, in grade school and high school, my cousin and I were talking. We were not taught any of this stuff about women's rights. None of this.
No.
None of these things. These causes that we feel very strongly about. We learn nothing about this.
Right.
And people need, and don't just read what's on the internet. I mean, except watch this channel and this show.
Yes, please.
Yeah. But don't just rely on what's on your screen, because it may not even be true.
It could be AI.
That is, I don't want to sound like a Luddite, but I'm kind of against that, because it's like, what is real? I mean,
I know that's a tricky part, but
yeah,
that's why you have to do your own research, meet people in person, do things like how people did back then a bit, to sort of keep that sort of like, okay, you're real, you're here, because unfortunately it is an issue now, but there are a few companies that are taking measures to sort of dip it down a bit, because AI is a tool. At the end of the day, it can be used for great things, but it's also not doing that now.
It's also used for propaganda.
It is heavily used for propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about, one of my favorite video things is there are these Labradors and they're a band. There's a Labrador playing a guitar and playing the piano and playing a violin and whatever else. And it's like, I love that. Now, I know I love dogs and I love magic, but you can't make a Labrador play guitar.
No.
Not yet, anyway.
Right.
But it just, the truth, again, in history is what that's about. And I feel that, that witches and pagans are true to themselves and true to their beliefs, and respect other people and respect their truths as well. Maybe your truth is different to mine.
Right.
And that's okay. But the thing is, like you're saying, people, to sit down and talk. And that's what we seem to be at, more than an impasse here. Because it's like, I mean, honestly, I'm very, 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 pro-choice and pro-abortion. And could I sit down with somebody who's screaming outside a clinic and talk?
Right.
I don't honestly think I could.
I know. Some people are better geared for that sort of interactions than others. I mean, shoot, I've even shared this on a channel. There's even a passage in scripture that supports abortion. But Christians don't know it because they don't read. They don't study. I believe it said it was Numbers 11 or Numbers 5, 11 through 22. Okay. I think where it talks about, Christian will know it as the test of the loyal wife, or whatever it is. I went through the whole thing there, but that passage, and I'll put it here just for you all to see it again, because I've mentioned it a couple of times. I've even had a little debate about it with my parents. And so they would try to sort of say, well, excuses, things like that. But I'm like, but it's giving instruction as to how to perform one, and it's at the behest of the priest. I'm like, this is technically an abortion. If you're trying to force the womb to miscarry, it's an abortion.
Yeah, whatever
plain and
name
simple.
you give it.
Yes, whatever name you give it. If it's I can't believe it's not butter. It's like that sort of thing. Like honey, but call it what it call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
But yes, and I too agree with that. And those people that don't, and I can understand people's concerns. They see the organism as a living child. But I gave the argument. I see life with things like spirits, because me and you are spirits. We're within corporeal forms. If that person or if that organism dies, if that life dies, the spirit is still living. It will just find a separate host to then take. So if the child that perhaps the spirit that is to then going to use you as a vessel, as a channel to manifest itself, can no longer. It will find a separate channel to manifest itself in. So the child that maybe you maybe lost by accident, or maybe that you, whatever, according to your beliefs, is still alive. They're just somewhere else in like another form. So there should be some
reincarnation.
Right. It's something that I believe can give you a type of like comfort, because we are creatures of energy. We are spirits. It's like when we die, the body does not go to heaven. The spirit does. Who you are goes to the next life. So before you come in, you are spirit. When you leave, you are spirit. So even if your point of entry is closed via abortion, another one will open.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have a different life about it. But that person is still there. You're just eliminating the door it needs for access. It will find another door somewhere else. If your God wants that child to be born, or whatever you call it is, it will happen, but maybe not through you. It might have a different parent, maybe someone that can provide its needs better than maybe you can, depending on what happens. There's a million ways you can look at it when it comes to things like that.
And that's a thing too, that people who just have a rigid, very narrow viewpoint of things. I mean, I understand, you've been taught this, you've grown up with it, you're comfortable with it, and you feel safe with it. And I get that, because we all want to feel safe.
We do.
But you have to be able to live with the discomfort. It's like discovering, myself as a witch. It was like, well, wait a minute, can I do this? Should I do this? But you work through, you have to question. You always have to question. And if something makes you uncomfortable, why is it making you uncomfortable?
Yes.
Why does, there's a million examples of this. And I have to say, people are worried about somebody, a trans person in the bathroom. Why do you give a fuck?
Right.
Honestly.
Right. It's almost like
they're there to pee or whatever.
They're using the facilities. That's all should matter. Okay, but
yeah,
but they want to do a thing about trans or anything else. But when we have actual men or women that are doing things against the opposite sex or the same sex that are also concerns, they don't really bring that up. Like there are plenty of men that are hurting other men inside bathrooms, stabbing, shootings, killings. Getting information that happens inside bathrooms. But people are denouncing men in general. Of using the bathroom. Right. But as soon as someone's different or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember a story, since you said that, where there was a person that had that was trans, right? And they still had whatever, even though, but they identify as someone else, right? So they were told to use the bathroom of their
birth gender.
Of their birth gender.
Yeah.
They did, and then they got in trouble for it because they no longer look like it. So they were like, so what the fuck do you want from me?
Yeah, where am I supposed to go?
Yes, I followed your own rules. I changed myself to feel more like myself. And because you were unsatisfied with the change, you told me to go back to where I came from. So I did, and you said I wasn't welcome.
Yeah.
That's like, for example, that's like, let's say, I think it was a person that I think was, female to male.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They were female at first, transitioned, male. Then they were told, you can't use this bathroom. I don't even know how they knew. They were whatever. But they're like, we have to use the other one. So they go to the one, then they get in trouble. Like, this man came into the thing. This man? At a glance, that's what they see. They don't know until you tell them. But even then, you don't identify with it. You're a woman to them or whatever, even though you're a man. It's the whole thing. I hate explaining it. But, they got in trouble when they came back. And so it's like, where do you want them to go? We abide by your rules, yet you are still not satisfied. So where are we supposed to go? They have no real answers. They have no real logic behind their thoughts anyway. They don't really think about this sort of thing deeply.
Yeah. They don't want the person, the trans person to exist, is what I think.
They don't.
It's like, we don't want you to be here. We don't want you to be there. We don't want you to be anywhere. And it's like, there's a distinct parallel to me, the way that the Jews were treated in Nazi Germany. Because first it was, well, you can only go to this place at this certain time. And then it was, well, you can't go to this place at all.
Right.
And they kept expanding the places. And it's like, where do you go?
Right.
What do you do? Yeah.
It was like that. It was
persecuting the oppressed.
It was like that during segregation with black people, with brown people, even with gays at the time as well. Like before Stonewall even happened, there was a similar thing.
Yeah, it's just, there's so many examples of it, and again, it's, people need to know these things and to not deny that they happened. And I think part of the purpose of the witchy community is, to bring this out, to tell the truth.
Right.
I have read a good number, whatever, of witchy books, and it's, these things happen to these people, and we don't deny it, and we are here to learn from this, like the persecution of witches,
Right.
And that's kind of like changing the point a little bit. But I had read in a few places that there were X number of million witches burned and hung during the burning times.
Right.
And
which was farther back than I think the Salem trials. I think it happened farther back, right?
Yes.
In Europe mostly.
Plus, it was also not true. Those numbers, there were people who were persecuted, tried, imprisoned, tried, executed, but not nearly that number.
Right.
And that's a part of telling. I guess I'm bringing this up because people will say this. It's like people will say, well, these are the people who did die in Salem in 1692,
right?
And none of these people were burnt at the stake.
No.
They either died in prison,
right,
or they were hung.
Yeah.
And it's like people say I'm pedantic or whatever, but it's like, but stories come up and they're not true. No. And they can be harmful, misleading at least.
Yeah, like for example, most of the people that were killed during the Salem witch trials weren't really witches. A lot of them were Puritans.
Probably none of them were witches.
Right. Let's be real. Like these were essentially Christians killing Christians. It was like a weird. I forgot what was it. It was either like a type of. I don't know if it was like a pandemonia kind of thing happening, a madness thing happening in that village. Even the leaders or the other that lived in a separate city, I think they were like, what the fuck is going on in Salem?
Yeah. Well, you had Salem. In fact, I'm gonna plug my zine.
Oh
here.
Yes.
Yes. I wrote this when I came back from Salem. I was very affected by my time there, and I wanted to write something as a tribute to the victims. And I did perform this at the Buckland last year, but the people were, who were murdered were all in the community. Now they were outcast in some ways. They were people that some people were jealous of. Some people had a lot of money and a lot of property. But if you look at anybody's life, you can find something, what did you do? And why did you do that? And you did something evil, and my cow died, and it's your fault because you looked at them cross-eyed.
And you sneezed. You killed the cow.
Exactly. And the hogs, too.
You did.
But, I mean, it was just a hysterical thing that it was kind of like they say, the perfect storm. You had... imagine living in, like it's freezing cold outside right now because this is February, but
yes. But
we have a nice comfortable house. We have heat, the whole thing. But imagine you're in Salem Village, two separate locations.
Yes.
And in Salem Village, okay, a lot of the people, they had wooden houses, but they didn't have any insulation. No. They didn't have, a lot of things that would have made their lives easier. Windows, they might not have had windows. They might just had animal skin to cover up the windows to keep the air out. Right. So not a happy, life. You had to struggle. You had to make pretty much everything. Yes. Including your food. If you had children, you had to wash all the clothing. Just all these things that now it's so, it's easy to do. Back then it was just drudgery. Yes. And the girls, the daughters of the minister in Salem Village, they were 10, 11 years old. So, okay, now a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, you've got so many different things you can do. You can have fun. You can learn, you can wear whatever you want.
Some even have cell phones.
Yes. Yeah. These little girls, what was their entertainment? They had the Bible. Right. And they were just, bored, and they were investigating things. I'm trying to keep this short because this is something I really like to talk about and learn about too. But they had gotten into something and they got frightened because they didn't know they were messing with something that they thought it was the devil's work. Right. And one thing just led to another, and the hysteria took over, and that's what basically led to these people in Salem were Salem Village were murdered. Right. they had in effect done nothing but maybe
Right.
irritated their neighbor,
Right.
which is not a crime yet.
Right.
But anyway, I wrote this scene because this is something that I feel very strongly about, and I wanted to focus on the fact that, you know, I wrote these like, you know, to each person as an individual, because that's what they were. They weren't witches. They were people, you know, like anybody else.
They were normies.
Yeah.
They were mundane muggles. They were just people that were just living their lives
Yeah.
in the forest as best as they could. Some of them were believers. But to that point, I remember listening to someone that does their research on like medieval practices and people back then, even in Europe. Back then, with, you know, as strong as the church was, most people were normal about it. Like, look, we believe in God, we go, that's it, we do our normal thing. Even some of the parishioners or the pastors or whatever, they were like that as well. They weren't so what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't so legalistic when it comes to like Bible or interpretation. Like these were just normal people. Some of them couldn't even read. These are just normal people that, look, we heard about God, but you know what? I'm just going to keep making my bread because, you know, I can't feed my family with prayers, can't I? No, I can't. So I'm just going to bake bread. Hammond's going to come in with a nice roast pig. We're going to fuck for a few hours, make another worker, and then we'll be fine, you know? And that's how it was in the country for some people. Other people, they went to the pub or to the inn. Other people, they went to school somewhere else. It was very, very normal. But, and this was even during like medieval England, even during, you know, Christian era. They weren't this like thing there. That was something that came after, when kings tried to get more power, when, you know, candidates or whatever that were with church were trying to exercise powers in the church, when you have sort of doctrines being twisted or changed. I mean, I found out that in medieval times, there was a point in time where, like, knights could marry other knights, other men.
Oh,
that was the thing.
I've never heard that.
That was the thing. This was before the change, I think, in scripture. I think after King James that said, man and man can whatever.
He's a lot to answer for.
Right. So this change happened afterwards, because prior to that, there wasn't this sort of discrepancy. It wasn't something that was like, woo! But it was something that was like, well, you know, they are both men of station, so they have the money, the position, and they were allowed to marry. So like this was not common, but it was somewhat known even during that time. And we must also not forget that even during those times, there were still pagan practices that would still exist. They didn't just vanish. These were still, you know, these were still practices that people had, beliefs people had, customs that they had as well. And sometimes that bled over into the church. It wasn't until later that the whole thing with, you know, making the whole, you know, gay thing bad, as well as some other things as well. So, because, you know, you were merging a pagan society with a Christian society at one point. So, you know, certain things are sort of like, we'll just let it slide. But then all it took was just one authoritarian asshole to sort of change that, corrupt the church, because they have a certain vision of how things should be. And then that's what led to, you know, the persecutions and all that dangerous shit. It all comes from an idea, from a belief. But it's crazy. I was like, really? I was like, I had no idea. I was like, you're telling me that back then, church officials were like, no, yeah, do you, Sir Robert, wish to take Sir Darren as your whatever, as your lawful lover lord or whatever? It was a known section thing. Even I think it even got to maybe some positions in like the monarchy or so. Not as much, but it was something like that. So it wasn't, even back then, there was a point in time where even homosexuals weren't being this one-hated group. It was like, oh no, they just, you know, together. Because again, a lot of these people come from pagan practices where that stuff was normal.
Right. Nobody,
no one had an issue with it.
It was
like,
accepted.
Right, it was accepted. Oh yeah, like even now, Christians, let me be the case here, okay? Let's say right now, two men want to get married. You're like, oh, what is about whatever? You know what? Look, they both have aunties or grandmas. The child will still get what they need. It takes a village to raise a child. What matters is the survival of the child and how they learn and stuff. You can have two fathers or two mothers or whatever, and their purpose is to ensure that the child is safe for rearing. That they make sure the child is fed, the child learns, or whatever it is. So it shouldn't really matter who they, you know, fuck or anything like that. What should matter is that, you know, they're keeping the child safe, they're doing the proper parentage
Right.
of that child. That's what should matter.
Important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, God forbid they say, well, gays can't have pet dogs now. They want to fuck the dogs. I'm like, no. They want to fuck the dogs.
If that's what you... I'm going to be quiet about
I know.
that.
Well, you know, we are animals to a certain degree. So, if you want to get scientific.
That reminds me of that stupid quote about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Oh my God, I was laughing my ass off when that idiot said that. So was Kamala.
Like,
I know. They're eating the dogs, eating the cats. No, you dumb fuck. And then even then, it wasn't even a Haitian person. This was an American citizen that was eating a cat because I think she'd take heavy drugs or some shit. So it wasn't an immigrant on drugs. It wasn't an immigrant eating it. It was homegrown stupidity, just ravaging that poor pussy, just eating that cat to shreds. God, I hope it was a good meal.
I feel bad for the cat, though.
I do feel bad for the cat. Maybe the cat was MAGA. Who knows? Maybe the cat. I don't know. I feel bad for the cat. You know, but
I'm a dog person. I have to say.
I know it's fair. It's fair. I know.
I accept cats, but my familiar is my dog Cobweb.
All right.
And he's my little furry son. And anyway, I like the fact that yes, I'm going to look at the notes. I know this is cheating.
It's fine. We're all friends here.
Possible solutions for the epidemic of stupidity, which is what we are dealing with.
Yes.
Now, my first answers were books, language, and empathy. And there are so many quotes that I was thinking of. I've read, so many quotes that just, are helpful to me. But I just chose one from Bell Hooks. Our words are not without meaning. They are an action, a resistance. So that's kind of like writing a spell. Poetry to me is very similar.
Yes,
to
I wrote a lot of
spell
it
writing
when I was younger. A lot.
And Maya Angelou, this is you may know what I'm going to be reading, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it has a rhythm to it. It's like, music, words, poetry. It's like, this is a spell.
Yes.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lines. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise. And I think we, again, we need to learn from history, written, recorded, and personal history.
We do.
Because a lot of things like people in music, people went out and interviewed, I think the gentleman's name was Alan Lomax, went out to interview all these old blues folks that nobody had paid much attention to. It's like their stories were important. They created some amazing music that needed to be heard and needed to be shared, and they recorded this. And a lot of people who were enslaved, the same thing. Their stories needed to be heard as well. Yes. There are so many different kinds of people. I could go on with way too long of a list. These, people's stories need to be heard. And it's our responsibility to make sure that those stories get heard and told so people learn from them. And sometimes, yes, they're going to make you weep because they're sad and tragic and hurtful that these people had to suffer with what they did. Mm-hmm. But we need to learn from that. It's, you have to be uncomfortable to learn and to grow. And the last thing I thought, what we need is a spell to fix the world. So perhaps you and I can write that.
We could. All right.
And then there's, of course, always fuck ICE.
Fuck ICE.
Fuck fascism.
Yes. 100%.
And all those other isms.
Yes. Honestly, and to the ICE, but you guys heard actually, I'll probably be uploading this before that, but I recently did a video where I was going on a whole rant about ICE. The things about it, I'll get into that. You guys will see the video. But do we have any final things you want to get out? So any sort of plugs, places you want to recommend, people you want to recommend? Even, I know you've mentioned books, but maybe perhaps any other authors or anything that comes to mind.
There are so many books, honestly. Excuse me again.
That's fine.
I was talking to, I don't know your name, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Not to be rude.
It's okay.
but Laura Tempest Zakroff, I think is how it's pronounced.
Laura Tempest Zakroff, yes.
Okay, he said her name correctly. Okay, but I found her books early last year, and she's a very powerful writer. She's very politically concerned and active and aware. She incorporates her witchy practice with activism, and there's a lot of work with sigils and spells.
She's very good at that.
Yeah, and she's just great. She also has Weaving the Liminal is one of her books that I really love. I'm going to read it again after I'm rereading this book.
Mm-hmm.
But there are just, there are so many books. I'd have to put a list together, and this would be scrolling on the screen like the credits for Star Wars.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so we're visit the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful place. That's where I met.
Yes, that's where she met me. Your Lord and Savior, Leonog. Your master, your daddy. I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh no, just I'm trying to be somewhat humble. I'm not really on this channel. I'm just I'm crazy, honestly.
Well, I think that's a healthy thing. Honestly.
Yes, we all need it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But I appreciate this opportunity, and this has been good for me to be with someone like-minded and someone, dare I say it, better educated than myself in a lot of things. Yes. But this is something, witchcraft has a presence in the community, and I have not come out of the broom closet at any place I've ever worked. I don't think that's a good idea.
You don't. Yeah, maybe not. I mean, you can if you like, but honestly, it's like just keep it professional. If they are asking you heavily, like, do you do witchcraft? If you feel safe, then by all means say yes. If not, just don't say anything and say no. You could lie. Fuck it. Just lie. Say no. I don't. I don't. Yeah. You could just say that. It's not a big deal. Really.
Well, I worked at, I'm just going to say at Case, and Case is an enormous university. And this woman, we were talking about work, and all of a sudden she just stopped and said, "Are you a witch?"
Oh. And
in like 1 second, I went through all the possible answers and permutations, and what should I say, what shouldn't I say, and I said, I came up with another question about the work we were talking about. That's where I went. It's like I just pretended like I didn't even know what she said.
Misdirection.
Because she went with it. She, not to be mean, but I think her IQ is in the single digits. But
half of this country's IQ is in the single digits.
But
go back to school, you idiots. Please.
Or go to school in the first place.
Oh my goodness.
But people, it's just telling people that you're a witch.
Yeah, it throws some people off. Like I've said that. I've said, well, I practice witchcraft. They're like, do you really? Like some people, they get a little bit nervous or they change around you a little bit. I'm like, do you feel me?
Or they say like, can you change me into something, or can you fly?
Can you fly?
I said, well, not in front of you.
No, but I can take you for a ride if you like.
Oh! I love that. I love that.
I know, but it's all fun. But honestly, Blue Cobweb Witch.
Yes.
I want to thank you for coming on this channel, for coming and gracing us with your presence, with your brilliant hair. I love your hair. And honestly, with your knowledge and with your eagerness to try to seek something different and something better for the community, because we all need it. All right. I want everyone to make sure to follow those links we're going to be posting up. Make sure to check out the Buckland Museum of Witchcraft located in Cleveland, Ohio, in the old Brooklyn area. I will put those down here as well. Make sure to follow up on the book she's recommended from, Tempest Zakroff. The other one, the For the Resistance. This one here. Okay? If you guys are interested, read this one. This one is by Michael M. Hughes.
That's mandatory reading.
Mandatory reading. You have to read it. I'm sorry.
Yes.
If you don't read it, you die. With a broomstick in your ass. You know, no, I'm joking.
And then if you're interested in buying my zine, it's available at the Buckland. And if not, maybe you can put a little link in the...
Sure, I can as well. I can do that for you as well. You mentioned some other books, making sure we can revisit them a little bit for a quick second here. Juliet Diaz, Witchery Embrace the Witch Within. That's what the book looks like. If you find it in other covers that you find more tasteful, I think this one's marvelous. Buy this. Buy other ones.
And buy all of these too. And we're not getting paid to say this.
No, pro bono. I know. I'm working... Never mind. Seasons of the Witch, Yule Oracle, Laura Tempest and Juliet Diaz. The same person that wrote that book, actually. Yes, this one has the gorgeous green gilded cards. I love it. And honestly, it doesn't look super witchy, which may be what you're looking for, but it does scream pagan. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah. Yes.
And it's very kind, too. It's very... that's why I resonated with the first set that I bought, because it's not it just like gentle and
right.
I hate to say cozy.
It's more inviting, maybe.
Yeah.
It's less maybe edgy.
It's not. Yeah. This is not edgy. The cards, the explanations, the whatever's in the cards are they're very helpful because they make you think and they ask you questions, and that's how you learn. Yes. But these are intuitive decks, and if you're intuitive, this will help you develop your witchy intuition, I think, more, than, which is always good, pardon the pun, witches, yes
witches are always good,
yes,
unless we're bad.
I was just going to say that.
I know, but my lovely rats, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any sort of questions or concerns, place them in the comments below. If not, I'll ignore it. Thank you so much again. I want you to all remember to practice in safety, whether it's a sex or magic. And remember to be kind, to rewind, to reassess, and practice in excess greatness. And make sure you read. Thank you again, Cobwebs. And without further more delay, lovelies, goodbye.